Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here, and today I'm going to be doing part 5 of my 5-part NBA season preview. So this is the last one. If you stuck around to watch them all, congrats. In this part of the video, I'm going to be predicting basically how I think teams will do in the playoffs, who I think will advance, and ultimately who I think will make the finals and win the NBA title. So if you didn't watch the other parts of my video, you can basically just catch on where I have all the teams finishing 1 through 8 in each conference, and we will go from there. So I'm going to do how I think basically each conference will do in each round. So I'm not going to do like the East up until one team left. I'm going to do first round in the East, first round in the West, so on and so forth. So starting off in the East, at the 1 seed, I have Boston, and then at the 8 seed, I have them facing Miami. I see this round going pretty quick. I'll say Boston in a clean sweep. I just think that they're overall superior. Miami has a lot of depth, as I said earlier in another video, with role players, but Boston has depth with like starting caliber stars. So I think that they just have a lot more talent. Really well-coached teams on both sides, but the Heat are bringing guys like Wayne Ellington and Justice Winslow, and the Boston is bringing guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who I just think are better. So yeah, that's who I got winning that. As far as the 2 versus the 7, that's Toronto versus Detroit, which I would really like to see the series because it'd be Dwayne Casey going up against his former team. But I still don't think that they would do all that well. I'd see it being like Toronto winning in 5 or 6 games. Just for the sake of prediction, I'll say 5 games. Overall, a more talented roster. You just look up and down the starting lineup. Kyle Lowry more talented than Reggie Jackson. Danny Green probably comparable to whoever would start at the 2 for Detroit at that point in the season. Maybe like Glenn Robinson. At the 3, Kawhi versus Stanley Johnson, easily Kawhi. At the 4, Blake versus Serge, you'd say Blake's better. And at the 5, Drummond versus Jonas, but you'd say that Drummond's better. And then you look at the benches, and Detroit really has not much of a bench at all, and Toronto has arguably the best bench in the league. So Toronto pretty easily in 5 games I have. At the 3 seed, we have Philadelphia versus the 6 seed Milwaukee. This would be a super fun series to watch. I'd love to see Giannis go up against Simmons and Embiid because he's a lot like Simmons in that he's a tall guy that handles the ball. And then I just think that like Embiid, you add him to any series and it would be interesting. I have Philly winning this one in 7. I think that it's sort of like different year, same story with Milwaukee, a team that has all the talent in the world but will lose in the first round just because they aren't there mentally or something. I think Budenholzer will help fix that a little bit, but I still think that I just think Philly's better. I think that basically Embiid and Giannis will about cancel out each other's value, and then Ben Simmons is better than anyone on Milwaukee after that. And basically I like the supporting cast of Philadelphia a little bit better than Milwaukee's. Like Brogdon, I don't know if you can really trust him in the clutch. Eric Bledsoe really kind of fell on his face last year in the playoffs and didn't do well. Brook Lopez, I don't really know what to expect from him in a playoff series anymore. Whereas all the guys in Philly, like JJ Redick, I expect him to be solid in the playoffs along with Saric. And you could say the same thing about Philly with Fultz, but I just like Philly's supporting cast better, and they have 2 stars compared to Milwaukee's 1. All right. And then the interesting one, I think, will be Indiana and Washington, which I see being a 6 or 7 game series. And for the sake of prediction, I'll say 7 game series. I have probably, I'm going to say Washington's going to win this one, honestly. I think that Indiana has better execution, but I think that Washington has more talent. I think those are pretty comparable. I think that each team will at some point think that they deserve to win the series and that will have a chance to win the series. And I just ultimately think that Washington will. This team's got to prove a lot of people wrong who said that they're kind of washed up. And I think that they still have all the talent to do it. They got more talented than they were last year. Really, like what do I think is a bigger addition? Dwight Howard, Austin Rivers, and Jeff Green, or Tyreek Evans and Kyle O'Quinn? I'd say overall the Washington additions mean more, but the Indiana added the best player out of all those guys I just listed. But I have Washington winning because I think they're going to give it their all, and I don't know how far that will get them. But for this series, I think it will get them to the next round. Plus, I think John Wall is better than Darren Collison. I think Bradley Beal is comparable to Victor Oladipo. Otto Porter is better than Bogdanovich. Markieff Morris is better than or equal to Thad Young. And Dwight Howard's about equal or slightly better right now to Miles Turner. So that being said, I have Washington winning. Now, going to the West for the first round, I have the Warriors beating the Trailblazers in a clean sweep. They've pretty clearly proven in the past couple of years that they can beat them. They beat them in 2016 and 2017, so I don't see any reason why they couldn't beat them this year as well. Blazers, alright team, but really a two-man team when it comes down to it. And now the Warriors are a five-man team, so with 5 All-Stars compared to the Blazers have 1 All-Star and 1 really good, like fringe All-Star caliber player. So that being said, I've got the Warriors in 4. Next, Rockets versus Lakers. Really interesting series. You got the Chris Paul, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, all good friends, or CP and Melo would be going against LeBron. It'd be pretty interesting. I have the Rockets in 6. I'm going to give LeBron 2 games just because I think that he's that good that he can get 2 games off of this Rockets team. I don't see them winning the series though by any means. I'll say James Harden right now is probably about equal impact to LeBron. Like they're on the same level. LeBron's like higher on that level, but James Harden was the MVP. He's a top 5 player in the league. He's comparable to LeBron at this stage in LeBron's career as far as impact on a team and value. And besides that, I'd say that the next best player in the series is Chris Paul, and then the next best player in the series I'd almost say is like Clint Capella. And then like Eric Gordon is probably on the same level as like Ingram and Kuzma. And for that reason, I think you just got to take Houston because they have, you take the 5 best players in the series, and I'd say they have, or you take the 4 best players in the series, and they have 3 of them. So I'll take Houston in 6. 3 seed, the Jazz versus the 6 seed, the Nuggets. This is the potential upset in this round, I think. I could see this one going either way. I'm going to say it goes 7 games. I'm going to give the edge to the Jazz just because I like the when it comes down to it, I trust defense more than I trust offense. And I see these teams are super opposite. The Jazz are a team that likes to really slow it down and play as if it's a slugfest, and Nuggets like to play really up-tempo. But I have the Jazz winning in 7 just because I give that edge to Rudy Gobert over Jokic, as far as I like Gobert's defense better than I like Jokic's offense right now. As maybe you disagree, maybe you agree, I don't know, but that's what I have. Then the 4, the Thunder versus the 5, the Spurs. I have the Spurs winning this one. I think that the Thunder are sort of a different cat this year with the same spots, if that makes sense, or a different leopard with the same spots. There's no Carmelo Anthony, but did they really get that much better? Dennis Schroeder's like he'll probably give them like similar production to what Melo gave them last year, just at a different position. Probably I'm going to say around 15 points a game, probably 6 assists a game. And Melo gave them around 16 points a game last year, and obviously less assists, but similar production. I'll say 6-game series, Spurs win. Spurs execute a lot better. Russell Westbrook is a head case. Good player, obviously great player, just a head case. You can't really, I think last year in the playoffs proved he's actually a lot more inconsistent than we might think. For that reason, I like the additions of DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl a lot. I think that they're going to be better than people think they will be, and I have them winning in the first round against the Thunder. Now moving on to the second round, I'll go back to the Eastern Conference here. So in the second round, we'd have the 1 seed Boston versus the 5 Washington. I'll say Boston wins this 4-1. I think Washington will sort of have thrown everything they've got at Indiana just to get to the second round. And I think, not that they'll be washed up, but they'll kind of be like spent by the time they get to the second round. I think you look at the matchups, Kyrie is better than or equal to John Wall. Then the next best player on each team, I'd say Gordon Hayward's like a little bit worse than Bradley Beal, but still pretty comparable. Jason Tatum better than or equal to Otto Porter. Al Horford at this point in his career is better than Dwight Howard. Jaylen Brown better than Austin Rivers. Terry Rozier better than Satoransky. Just you go down the line, and after about the first 2 to 3 guys for Washington, Boston has all the better players when you're matching up like their best players overall. So I expect Boston to win this one in 5, and because I also expect Washington to be a bit spent from the last series. Then we have the 2 versus the 3, Toronto versus Philly. You know, people, I think, would expect Philly to win this one, but I have Toronto in 6. I think that Toronto is the best player in the series in Kawhi. Then they probably have the 4th best player in the series in Lowry. And I think, it won't come back to bite Philly in the first round against Milwaukee, but against Toronto, who has a great bench, I think that losing the likes of Ilyasova and Bellinelli will come back to bite them more because their second unit is going to be significantly weaker. Basically, Redick or Fultz, depending on who starts, will be like the whole second unit, like the best player. And I just think that will struggle against a second unit that features C.J. Miles, Fred VanVleet, Darrell Wright, Pascal Siakam, and OG Anunoby. All really solid guys. So that being said, I have Toronto in 6. Like Serge Ibaka and Dario Saric. I don't like people. You probably say Saric is a little bit better, but they're not far separated. They're pretty equal. Embiid's obviously better than Valanciunas, but Lowry's better than Fultz. Kawhi's better than Simmons. And as far as shooting guards, Covington and Danny Green are probably pretty similar. Probably Covington a little bit better at this point, but he was bad in the playoffs last year, so we don't know what to expect. But I'll take Toronto. West in the second round. Warriors versus Spurs. I have Warriors in 5. I would say 6, but I think that the Spurs aren't as good as the team with Kawhi that went up against the Warriors 2 years ago. But they are still good. I'll say 5, maybe 6 if they play really well. But the Warriors with the 5 All-Stars, that's going to be a lot more dominant than I think a lot of people want to predict. I think a lot of people want to still say, people are going to push them to 6 or whatever, just to make it interesting. But no, 5 games is pretty generous already for the Spurs. And then Rockets versus Jazz. I have Rockets in 6. Jazz are good, but you say Rudy Gobert is their best player probably versus Harden. I'd say Harden's the better player. Rudy Gobert versus Chris Paul, probably about equal players. And then I guess Donovan Mitchell's better than anyone else the Rockets have. But outside of their 2 best players, I like the combination of Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker and Carmelo better than I like Joe Ingles and Ricky Rubio is basically what it comes down to for me. So I'll take the Rockets in 6. Moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. I have Boston versus Toronto, and I have Boston winning this in 7 games. I think it'll be a lot closer than people think. The 2 best benches in the East will be going at it. It sounds weird to say that the 2 best benches will be going at it because you'd assume, what the starters will be too. But of course they will be. But Kawhi, I think, is the best player in that series, and I think that that'll show. And I think that he will have a really good defensive impact versus the likes of Tatum and Hayward. And as far as Kyrie, he'll probably do pretty well because Lowry's an okay defender, not great in my book. So he won't have his way with him, but he'll do his thing and be able to get his shots off and stuff. Overall, Boston just has better players. Like Danny Green isn't as good as Jaylen Brown, and Serge Ibaka isn't as good as Jason Tatum. Jonas Valanciunas isn't as good as Al Horford. All of those guys are like, they're not super far away in their values, but the Celtics just have the better players. So I have Boston in 7. And in the West, Houston versus Golden State. Despite me liking Houston a lot, obviously with my James Harden poster, and I think that they're still a really good team, with the addition of Cousins, I have them losing, because that was the one thing you could do to the Warriors, is bully them in the post, and the Rockets could use guys like Clint Capella and Nene a bit more to not bully them, because Draymond won't let that happen, but to be physical with them and be harsh on them a little bit as far as defense. But with DeMarcus, he'll be able to counteract that and be a hard force on the Rockets too. And really just you look at the lineups and you say, okay, just to being generous, Durant and Harden are on the same level, let's say. But then already Chris Paul isn't as good as Curry. You could say Chris Paul's about Klay Thompson's value, but that still leaves them with the advantage. And then maybe Clint Capella is sort of similar value to Draymond Green, but that still leaves the Warriors with the advantage of a Steph Curry and a DeMarcus that the Rockets really don't have much of an answer for. As far as just like canceling out values, like Eric Gordon isn't as good as Steph, and Carmelo isn't as good as DeMarcus Cousins. So I have Warriors in 6. And then on to the NBA Finals, Boston versus Golden State. I have the Warriors in 7. Why? Because I think they're more experienced. I don't think they're more talented, because I think Boston, you look through the lineups 1 through 9, Boston's more talented. You look at the benches, Iguodala, not washed up, but getting older. Sean Livingston, not washed up, but getting older. Kevin Looney and Jordan Bell, not that great. Young guys who are kind of just scrubs. I'm not going to say scrubs, but not really good. Like, around the 30th overall pick in each of their drafts, they're all right. Jonas Jerebko is like all right, not anything special really. And then you look at the C's bench, and they've got Baines, who's I'd say better than Looney and Bell at this point. They've got Marcus Morris, who's better than Jerebko, I'd say at this point. Terry Rozier is probably about equal to Livingston. Marcus Smart's probably about equal to Iguodala in value. Obviously, the Warriors starting lineup is better than the C's. I'd say, top to bottom, they have the better starting lineup, but this is going to be a defensive series. Like, people would say, like, oh, Kyrie, Steph, Durant, it's going to be all offense. But no, these are both two good defensive teams. Al Horford is going to be a big part of this series, how he shuts down or combats DeMarcus Cousins, because DeMarcus Cousins is going to be a bigger part of this team than people think. He shores up their biggest weak spot on the team, so they are going to have to look to him for some production. And he can't just like ride the bench and win a title and then move on. He's going to have to be a key contributor to this team if they want to win a title. Draymond Green, I see him, handling Jason Tatum pretty well. Gordon Hayward and Durant, obviously Durant's better, but Hayward can hold his own. And then Jaylen Brown versus Klay Thompson will be the quietest matchup of the series, the least talked about guys on each starting lineup, but should be interesting matchups. Brown's a good defender. Let's see what he can do with Thompson. So basically, I think that the Warriors will win it, but it won't be a landslide. And this is the one series that will actually be kind of harder for them. And actually, it's interesting because I realize in these predictions I have the Warriors sweeping, winning in 5, winning in 6, and then winning in 7, which is really what it should be in the NBA. It should get harder each round. That's what I have for the Warriors in this prediction. Again, I have them beating the Celtics in the finals. I have them beating the Rockets in the conference finals. And I have the Celtics beating Toronto in the conference finals. It's a brief little recap. Again, if you have anything that you want to say to me in the comments, go ahead. If you have a major disagreement or beef with what I said, go for it. If you have something that you think I'm right about and you want to tell me about that too, you can sure go ahead and do that. I hope you guys liked the video, and I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.